Hello, so this is my presentation on my mini activity, which is a debate. Okay, so I chose the cognitivist method. So my students are intermediate to advanced, and I chose the cognitive method because I think it's vital in order for students to get to a level of competency for them to even be able to have this existing knowledge that they can integrate into cultural contexts. But once the students have this existing knowledge, I think it's really important to give them practice where there is structure, but they're being put into this situation where they don't really have time to practice how to start sentences and what types of words to use and when. Because I think that fluency is largely learned from being in situations where you struggle to say what you want to and you really have to push yourself. So the actual debate activity is going to be a podcast style recording that is going to educate these students on the pros and cons of a topic, and in this case it's going to be vegetarianism. So students are assigned to either a pro or a con the day of the mini activity, and they are only given enough time to recall the really important parts of that podcast, and those pieces of information are going to be the main support for their side of the argument that they're assigned. And they're only going to be given just enough time to form like an outline of what exactly they think are the best ways to present this argument, but really not much else. And in this activity, students are going to be paired off and they are going to have a conversation with their partner where they disagree with each other. So I wanted to talk about why not a different method such as the Socratic method, which is like a really common way for teachers to go about debates, at least in Western classroom settings. So Socratic seminars, I don't think it's a good idea for this activity because everyone's really looking at one person speaking, and I think that would only add to the anxiety of the situation, and I think that it can be a real struggle for L1 speakers to find the correct opportunity to interject in these moments, because sometimes a conversation just goes in a different direction, and then a student will be left with this point that they wanted to make, but they couldn't even really find a good opportunity to like really say what they wanted to, and I think that can lead to feeling a little dejected. And so I think that the point is that this kind of activity doesn't properly mirror a conversation anyway in real life. So yeah, I think that there's just like all of these different factors that don't even have to do with their conversation skills that could potentially hurt the students' performance in this activity and also their confidence as a result. So that's why they're in pairs instead. And so this is why I find this to be a relevant activity. So, for example, an example from my personal life is my mom really struggles with speaking in English, and she encounters a lot of situations where she kind of chooses not to speak up about things that she does disagree with because of how exhausting it can be to argue with an L1 speaker when you are an L2 speaker, because at the end of the day, if you are not yet fluent, then the L1 speaker is just always going to be more proficient at delivering their point, and it can be really frustrating to feel kind of like not smart enough to like hold your own end up in an argument when you are. So I think it's important from a cultural and safety standpoint to be able to stand up for what you believe to be true, and I think that's why I think this is it's like a good thing to teach people like how to argue. And I think that it is also a trait that's really deeply valued in America, like speaking your mind. And as someone from an East Asian culture, agreeableness is often valued more than speaking your mind. And so I think that might be a point of culture shock for some students if they were to visit or live in America. So I think that this is like a good way to kind of put their foot in the door for the speaking culture that they might find themselves in America. or like, just countries not in East Asia, for example. And so the objective is that this activity can give students the opportunity to take part in this challenging conversation that could occur in real life and probably will, and give them the autonomy on which points they want to choose to argue, what they want to say when their partner says one thing or another, like, so not scripted, just the freedom, just giving them the freedom to take the conversation in whatever direction it's ultimately going to go, all while being, kind, not at each other's throats or anything. And I think that modeling is usually beneficial, regardless of the level of the students. But I think that for this activity, I want students to take this conversation where it just naturally ends up going. And I feel that if I show them a way that that conversation could go, they might try and replicate that instead of, having a actual authentic exchange. So yeah, I think that that is why no modeling might be best for this particular activity. Thank you.